The neutral trade station, 9 hung in the darkness of space like a jewel suspended between stars. Its metallic hull reflected the light of 3 suns, and inside, the greatest powers of the known galaxy had gathered for one purpose: to negotiate peace or prepare for war. Ambassador Laura walked through the wide corridors with her head held high. Her Earth delegation consisted of 12 people, each chosen for their strength of mind and spirit. Laura wore a simple black suit that made her human features stand out even more among the tall, powerful beings that filled the station. She was shorter than almost every other delegate, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. The collective had sent their best warrior to these talks. Her name was Commander, and she was bred for war the way humans were bred to dream. They were ancient when Earth was still young. Their species stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shone like polished metal and eyes that burned with intelligence and cruelty. They had conquered 12 star systems. They had fought the most dangerous enemies the galaxy had ever known, and they had won every single battle. Sat at the negotiation table with her arms crossed over her broad chest. Around her sat other delegates from 20-star nations, all smaller powers, all weaker than the military machine. Laura took her seat across from and smiled. The first thing that happened was laughed. "You came," the commander said, her voice like rocks grinding together. The small human came to the big table. "This is brave or foolish. I cannot tell which." Laura did not react. She opened the Earth proposal and began to speak about humanity's right to exist as equals in this region of space. She talked about Earth's territories, Earth's resources, and Earth's determination to protect itself. Interrupted her. "Equal." The warrior leaned back in her seat and shook her head. "You have ships that are barely more than metal tubes. You have weapons that would take 50 years to match what we carry on a single vessel. You have lived as a civilization for only 10,000 years. My grandmother's grandmother was not yet born when your kind were still hunting with spears." The other delegates shifted in their seats. This was going to be a difficult negotiation. Laura continued speaking as if had not interrupted. She explained humanity's position in careful, simple words. She asked for recognition of Earth's sovereignty. She requested a non-aggression treaty that would allow humanity to develop in peace. Stood up from her seat. She was nearly 3 feet taller than Laura, and she used that height like a weapon. "You ask for respect, for peace. You are children asking for equal treatment with adults. Your entire species is less than the military academy of my home world. What you call warriors, we call training exercises." Laura remained sitting. She looked up at the commander and spoke clearly. "We ask for what you have already taken from many others. We ask for the right to exist." "The right to exist is not given," said. "It is taken, it is fought for, it is earned through strength, and you are not strong." The commander sat back down, but her eyes never left Laura's face. She wanted to see fear. She wanted to see the human break. Laura took a deep breath and began to speak. Her words were simple, but they carried weight like stones dropped into still water. "My people come from a world where everything tries to kill you," she said. "Our gravity is stronger than yours. Our sun burns hotter. Our animals are more fierce. Our weather is more deadly. We were born in fire and we learned to survive it. That is what you see as weakness. We do not measure ourselves by the size of our bodies or the power of our weapons. We measure ourselves by what we refuse to break." She paused and let her eyes meet directly. "Humans are unpredictable because we are born from unpredictability. We create art in darkness. We love so deeply that we will die for it. We dream of things that do not exist and then we build them. We do not give up. We do not stop. We do not surrender, not because we cannot see we are beaten, but because we choose to fight anyway." Made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been anger. "You speak as if speaking makes you stronger. Words do not break shields. Words do not fire weapons. Words do not win wars." "No," Laura agreed, "but they tell you who we are, and who we are is something you have not faced before." The negotiation continued for hours, rejected every proposal. She mocked every suggestion. She laughed at humanity's military capabilities. She called Earth a minor planet with nothing to offer except resources to be taken. By the time the first day ended, nothing had been accomplished except one thing. Laura had not broken. She had not shouted. She had not shown fear. That night, Laura sat in her quarters on the station. She could see Earth through the reinforced window, a small blue marble floating in the black. She thought of her family. She thought of her children. She thought of all the millions of people who were counting on her to protect their world. She thought of eyes burning with contempt. She knew they would return tomorrow with the same dismissal, the same mockery, the same assumption that humans were too weak to matter. Laura pulled up the files on military strength. She studied their weapons. She reviewed their battle records. Every fight they had entered, they had won. Some enemies they had destroyed completely. Others they had conquered and enslaved. The data was clear. Humanity was not ready for a war with the collective. If decided to attack Earth, there would be nothing humanity could do but watch their world burn. But Laura had not come to this station to negotiate from strength. She had come to negotiate from something else entirely. Something would not understand until it was far too late. The next morning, Laura returned to the negotiation chamber. Was already there, waiting, her mouth curved in a smile that showed too many teeth. "Come, small human," the commander said. "Let us continue this entertainment." Laura sat down and her eyes were calm and clear. "I have a proposal that might interest you," she said. "Let me face you in direct talks, just the two of us. No witnesses, no other delegates. Let me prove to you what humans can do when we have nothing left to lose." His eyes widened with something that looked like hunger. "Yes," the warrior said, "let us do this. Let me show you what strength truly means." Neither of them knew that in the deep silence of space beyond the station, the universe was about to shift in ways that would change everything they both believed about war, strength, and the nature of a true warrior. The meditation chamber was designed for peace. Its walls were white like fresh snow, and soft light came from every direction. There were no weapons inside. There were no guards, just a human and a facing each other across the emptiness of the room. Entered first, filling the space with her presence the way a storm fills the sky. Laura stood waiting, her hands at her sides, her expression peaceful. "Here we are," said, and her voice no longer carried mockery. It carried something sharper, something hungrier. "Alone at last. Now tell me, small human, what can you possibly show me that will change my mind about your kind?" Laura did not answer immediately. She walked slowly around the chamber, her footsteps echoing softly on the floor. "You believe strength comes from one thing," Laura said. "You believe it comes from physical power, from weapons, from the ability to destroy. Your entire civilization is built on this idea, but you are wrong." His face changed. For a moment her anger was visible as a real thing, something that made the temperature in the room rise. She took a step toward Laura, her massive frame casting a shadow. "I will not be spoken to this way," said. "You will listen," Laura replied, and her voice was stronger now. "You will listen because deep inside you already know I am right. If strength was only physical, your kind would not have survived this long. There would be something stronger and you would be gone. But you are still here. That means your strength is something more." Stopped walking toward Laura. She stood perfectly still, watching the human woman like a hunter watches prey. Laura continued, "I come from a world where every day is a test. Every day something tries to kill you. The weather tries, the animals try, the disease tries, but humans do not simply survive. We create, we imagine, we love. We build civilizations and art and music and stories. We do this not because it helps us survive. We do this because we choose to be more than mere survival." "Pretty words," said. "I have heard many beings speak pretty words before I destroyed them." "I know," Laura said, "but you never understood what the words meant. You heard them as weakness. I am telling you that you misunderstood what you were hearing." raised her hand. It was a gesture that had preceded the death of countless enemies. In battles across 12 star systems, that hand raised meant the end. But she did not strike. She wanted to hear more. Part of her needed to hear more. "Speak then," commanded. "Convince me that humans are not beneath my consideration." Laura took a breath. Humans are born into war every single day, not war with other species, war with death itself. We live such short lives compared to you. We have perhaps 80 years if we are lucky. Your kind lives thousands of years, but we do not despair about this. Instead, we use the shortness to make every moment mean something. We have learned to love more deeply because we know love will end. We have learned to protect others because we know we will not be here forever. We have learned to be brave because we know death is coming, and we choose to face it anyway. She paused and looked directly into his burning eyes. "I have held my daughter when she was born. I have watched her learn to speak. I have taught her right from wrong. I have done these things knowing that one day I will die and leave her behind. But I do it anyway. That is human strength. That is what you do not understand. You are immortal, so death means nothing to you. But humans face death every moment of our lives, and we choose meaning anyway. That is courage." Was silent for a long time. She was trying to understand, and the effort showed on her face like a crack spreading through glass. "You speak of your children," said finally. "This weakness is what you call strength, this attachment to beings you will leave behind." "It is everything," Laura said. "A human will destroy empires to protect their children. A human will run into fire if it means saving someone they love. A human will sacrifice everything, including their own life, for another. This is not weakness. This is the strongest force in the universe. It is stronger than weapons. It is stronger than technology. It is stronger than anything you have ever faced." Began to pace. Her mind was moving like a predator trying to understand prey that should be easy to kill but is not. "If this is true," said slowly, "then humans are either the most dangerous thing in existence or the most pathetic. I cannot decide which." "Perhaps both," Laura said. "Perhaps that is what makes us unpredictable. We can be broken, yes. We can fail, yes. We can die, yes. But we know all these things and we choose to try anyway. We choose to care. We choose to love. We choose to fight even when victory is impossible. That cannot be accounted for in military calculations. That cannot be predicted by analyzing data. That is why your scouts have never found a human world in your path that you could conquer easily. That is why humans always fight harder than they should be able to. That is why humans always cost you more than you expect." Raised her hand again. This time, Laura thought the strike might come. She did not move. She did not flinch. She stood there and looked at the commander with pity. But before could bring her hand down, alarms began to scream through the entire station. The sound was sharp and urgent and wrong. Every being in that chamber froze. The alarms continued, louder, more insistent, drowning out thought. Moved toward the door, her warrior instincts taking over immediately. "Something has happened," she said. A voice came through the communication system, urgent and terrified. "Emergency broadcast. The colony at Sector 7 has come under attack. The swarm is moving toward the system. All forces must respond immediately." Laura saw something happen in his face that she had not seen before. She saw fear, real fear. The kind of fear that comes when someone realizes that the game has changed and the rules no longer matter. The swarm was death itself. They were the nightmare that all civilizations feared. They consumed worlds. They left nothing behind but ash and silence. Turned to Laura, and for the first time she looked at the human not as an inferior but as something else. Something she did not yet have a name for. "My people are in danger," said. It was not a question. "Yes," Laura said. "And you will what?" asked. "Watch us die. Let this prove that strength is what I always believed." Laura met her eyes. "No," she said. "I will do what humans do. I will fight for you even though you mocked me. I will send my warriors to save your people, and I will expect nothing in return." stared at the human woman for one long moment. Then she moved toward the door, toward her people, toward a war that would change everything. The command center of 9 became a storm of activity. Screens showed the colony under attack. The swarm was not a fleet. It was a living thing that behaved like a creature of pure hunger. It had consumed 3 star systems in the past decade and left nothing but dead worlds floating in empty space. Watched the screens with a warrior's face. She did not show emotion, but Laura could see her hands clenching into fists. The commander was already organizing her response, ordering her forces to prepare for departure. Her damaged flagship would lead what remained of her military might toward the colony. But everyone in the command center knew the truth. The forces were not enough. The colony would fall. Thousands would die. Laura moved quickly. She accessed the communication systems using her ambassador codes. Within minutes, she was speaking directly to Earth Command. The conversation was brief but intense. "Sir," she said to the Earth Defense Chief of Staff, "they are under attack by the swarm. We have an opportunity here." "Negative," came the response from Earth. "They are a threat to all civilizations, but they have never asked for our help. If we intervene, we risk our own forces." "With respect," Laura said, and her voice was hard as stone, "if the fall, they will be that much stronger when they reach Earth. We are not helping them for charity. We are protecting ourselves." There was a long silence. Then, "You are right, but we can only send what we have, 7 ships, no more." "7 ships," Laura said. "Send them under full military authority. Tell them to move as fast as possible." "It will take time," Earth Command said. "The colony is 3 weeks away at maximum speed." "Then we go fast," Laura said, "and we pray we arrive before it is too late." The communication ended. Laura turned to see watching her. The commander's expression had changed. There was something in her eyes now that had not been there before. "Why did you do this?" asked. "Why did you commit your ships to save my people when they have been your enemies?" "Because it is the right thing to do," Laura said simply. "And because humans do what is right even when it costs us everything." Did not speak again. She returned to her preparations, but something had shifted in her. Some foundation of belief had cracked. The flagship departed from 9 with her forces. As she left, stood on the bridge and watched Earth space in the distance. Somewhere out there, human ships were being loaded with weapons and warriors. Somewhere out there, humans were preparing to fight and possibly die for a species that had called them weak. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mobilization was already happening. Hayes stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Fleet with his hands folded behind his back. He was a military man, tough as old metal, with a face that had seen 30 years of combat and diplomacy. He had commanded ships. He had made decisions that killed people. He had seen the best and worst of humanity. Now he was being asked to do something that all standard military doctrine. He was being asked to save the collective. "Are you certain?" his second officer asked. "They have never been allies, they have always been a threat." "Which is why we have to do this," said. "Because if they take the colony, they will be stronger when they come for us. And because Ambassador just made a choice about what humanity is. I am not going to make our species a liar." The fleet was assembled quickly. 7 ships, the best humanity had to offer. The captains and crews were told their mission. Most of them understood immediately. Some protested, but they all prepared to go. The journey began. The ships traveled at speeds that would tear apart lesser vessels. The crews pushed themselves to the limit of human endurance. Sleep was reduced to the minimum. Food was consumed while working. Every system was pushed to its maximum capacity. Lived in the command seat of his ship, the Earth Defender, never sleeping, always watching the sensor data. He watched the distance between his fleet and the colony decrease day by day. The messages coming from the colony were grim. They had surrounded it. The forces were being pushed back. More ships were being destroyed. More soldiers were dying. His flagship was arriving in the region ahead of the human fleet. The messages became even more desperate. The colony was going to fall. There was no question now. The only question was whether anyone would survive to tell the story. Looked at his crew. They looked back at him. No one spoke, but everyone understood. They were going into a battle they could not win, but they were going anyway. "Take us in," said finally. "Maximum speed, all weapons hot, charge every system we have." The Earth Defender surged forward, and behind it, 6 more ships followed. They were coming into a war zone where the military, one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, was losing. A human woman had made a promise. Now human warriors would keep it, even if it cost them everything. The journey continued. The swarm grew larger on the sensors with every passing hour. Soon the human fleet would be in weapon range. Soon the battle would begin. Thought of Laura on 9. He thought of what she had believed strongly enough to risk millions of lives to protect. He thought of what it meant to be human. "Prepare for combat," he said to his crew. "We fight today." The countdown began. The swarm filled the sensor screens like a plague of locusts. Thousands of individual ships, each controlled by the same hive consciousness, moved as one organism, consuming everything in its path. The colony burned below them, and its forces were dying fast. Then the human fleet arrived. They came in fast and hard, weapons blazing. The first volley struck 3 ships and sent them spinning into the void. It was not much compared to the size of the swarm, but it was something. It was human. Hayes led the attack personally from the bridge of the Earth Defender. He could see the tactical data flowing across his screens. The situation was as bad as he had expected. Worse, even. They were everywhere, and the human fleet had 7 ships against thousands. But had not come here to win a war by numbers. He had come here to fight. "All ships, execute pattern Gamma 7, he commanded. "We are going to use their numbers against them." The human ships began to move in coordination that the normal rules of combat. Instead of trying to match them directly, they wheeled and dove and spiraled. They created false targets. They used the gravity of the nearby star to slingshot around at angles they did not expect. A human captain named Robert took his ship directly into the thickest part of the swarm. His weapons were firing continuously, tearing apart vessels. But more importantly, his presence was forcing thousands to redirect their attention from the colony and focus on this new threat. Robert knew he was probably going to die. He made peace with that the moment he took command of this mission. Now he just focused on making his death mean something. His ship took fire. The shields flared red. The hull began to show damage. But still he pushed forward, his weapons never stopping, his crew fighting with the kind of desperation that comes from knowing you are the last line of defense for people you have never met. On the colony below, watched through the tactical feeds. She saw the human ships appearing, saw them fighting with tactics that made no sense on paper but made perfect sense if you understood one thing. Humans did not care about the odds. They cared about the outcome. She saw a human ship piloted by a captain named Susan take a full hit from a weapon system. The explosion should have destroyed the ship instantly. Instead, somehow kept the engines functioning. She took her dying ship and rammed it directly into a command node, detonating her engines and taking 15 enemy ships with her. Felt something strange move through her body. She wanted to scream. She wanted to break something. She wanted to understand how being so fragile could be so fierce. Kept the battle moving forward. His tactical officers reported in as ships were damaged. One of his commanders, a woman named Woods, reported multiple hull breaches. "I am still in the fight," said calmly, even as explosions rocked her vessel. "We have life support in sectors 2 and 4. We are still operational." "Fall back to position Delta," ordered. "No," said. "I am going to hold this sector. If I fall back, they will push through to the colony." Understood, was making a choice. She was choosing to stay and fight knowing it might kill her crew. but she was choosing to do it because the alternative was worse. Affirmative, said. You are authorized to hold position, fight with everything you have. We always do, said. Below on the colony, the battle was still raging. A young human soldier named David had taken shrapnel from a blast. His left side was torn open and he was bleeding badly. The medical officer, a woman named Elizabeth, wanted to evacuate him to the medical bay. No time, David said. I can still fight. You will die if you do not get medical attention, Elizabeth said. I will die anyway, David replied. But if I keep fighting now, maybe someone else does not have to. Do what you can and send me back out. Elizabeth made a field dressing. The blood would not stop completely, but it would slow. David got back to his weapons station, his face pale, his movements slower than before, but his hands were still steady on the firing controls. The human fleet was losing, not in the way of defeat, but in the way of exhaustion. Ships were falling. Some crews did not respond to hails. Some explosions lit up the void and did not produce any new signals. But with each human ship that fell, they lost more vessels. The mathematics did not favor the humans. For every they killed, they lost human soldiers they could not replace, but they kept fighting anyway. Then made his move. He had been waiting for this moment. He had calculated trajectories and fuel consumptions and the position of the command ship. Now he took the Earth Defender directly at it. All weapons on target, he commanded. Maximum power. The ship screamed through space. They fired at it with everything they had. Shields flared. Hull sections exploded. Crew members died at their stations. But the Earth Defender did not stop. Impact in 30 seconds, the weapons officer reported. Hold position, said. We need to be sure. 10 seconds. The command ship began to understand what was happening. It tried to move, but it was too slow. 5 seconds. Could feel death coming. He could feel it in the vibrations of his ship, in the screams of the crew, in the certainty that he had just minutes to live. Fire every weapon, he said. The Earth Defender unleashed everything. Weapons that had never been tested, tactics that explanation, the final will of a human captain to protect people he had never met. The command ship did not explode all at once. It came apart in sections, a slow destruction that seemed to take forever and no time at all. Felt the impact wave hit his ship. He felt the Earth Defender break apart around him. He felt himself dying. And as he died, the hive mind of the swarm lost its coordination. Without the command ship, the creatures became confused. The unified attack became fragments. The swarm began to break apart. Watched the sensor feeds show the human ship at the heart of the explosion. She watched the moment when the coordination failed. She understood what she was seeing. A human had sacrificed himself and his entire crew to break the enemy's unity. A human had looked at an impossible battle and said, yes, I will die now so others might live. The remaining human ships regrouped. With the command broken, they began to press the advantage. They attacked with renewed fury, knowing that Hayes had just bought them victory with his life. The battle continued for 6 more hours. Slowly, there was pushed back. Slowly, they disengaged from the colony. And slowly, the remaining swarm fled into the depths of space. The human fleet was broken. 3 ships were completely destroyed. 4 ships were damaged so badly they could barely maintain engines. The crews were exhausted past the point of functioning. But they had won. The colony was saved. The people would survive. And on the colony, stood in the command center and watched the data on the screens. She watched the human ships that remained, moving slowly, collecting survivors from the destroyed vessels. She watched, and she understood finally what Laura had tried to tell her. Strength was not the ability to destroy. Strength was the willingness to die so others could live. And humans had more of that strength than any species had ever encountered. The Colony Medical Center was a place of controlled chaos. Human and medical teams worked together, treating the wounded from the battle. Some would survive, some would not. The doctors moved from patient to patient, trying to save everyone, knowing they could not save them all. Stood in the command center of the colony, alone with her thoughts. Around her, soldiers worked to repair the damage to the installation. The walls still bore the marks of weapons fire. The air still smelled of smoke and burning metal. She thought of the human ship that had rammed the command vessel. She thought of the human captain who had steered his dying ship directly into the heart of the enemy. She thought of all the humans who had come to a fight they had no reason to fight, against an enemy that had nothing to do with Earth, and had died saving the people. She had mocked them. She had called them weak. She had said they did not deserve to exist as equals. Now her people lived because of their sacrifice. A communications officer approached her. "Commander, we have a signal coming from the main landing platform. Ambassador has arrived from the station with medical teams and supplies." Did not move for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the platform. Laura was directing her teams as they unloaded medical equipment and food and water from the human transport ship. She looked exhausted. Her suit was torn in places. There was a cut on her forehead that had been hastily bandaged. But her eyes were clear and strong. Stood at the edge of the platform and waited. She did not know how to move forward from this moment. She did not know how to speak after what she had said, after what she had believed. Laura saw her and walked over. She stopped a few feet away, giving space. "The battle is over," Laura said. "They are retreating. You have already received the report." "Yes," said, her voice was rough. "Your people defeated them." "Our people fought together," Laura corrected. "Your warriors and mine fighting as one. That is what saved the colony. That is what will save all of us if we choose to face the future together." Looked at Laura and something broke inside her. Not broke like breaking into pieces. Broke like a wall coming down. Like a barrier that had been in place forever finally collapsing. "I do not know how to apologize for what I said," said slowly. "I do not know how to take back the words I spoke. I did not understand you. I did not understand your people at all." "I know," Laura said. "That is why I wanted to talk with you. That is why I sent our ships to save your people, because I needed you to understand." Before could respond, the communication system activated. A voice came through, old and deep and filled with authority. The voice of Smother, the supreme matriarch of the collective, the oldest living, the most powerful being in their civilization. "My daughter," the matriarch said, "I have been monitoring the battle. I have watched everything that has transpired. I must speak with you and the human ambassador. Put us on a secure channel with visual transmission." And Laura moved to the communication center. The screen came to life and showed the face of the supreme matriarch. She was ancient beyond measure. Her skin was from countless battles. Her eyes burned with intelligence that had accumulated across 3,000 years. Behind her stood the leaders of the collective, the generals, the scientists, the elders, the powers that shaped the civilization. The matriarch said, "You went to these negotiations believing that strength came from weapons and conquest. You believed that the measure of a warrior was the damage they could inflict. You were wrong." The matriarch paused and looked directly at the camera with eyes that seemed to see into the souls of those watching. "A true warrior is measured by the choices they make," the matriarch continued. "A true warrior protects those who cannot protect themselves. A true warrior stands against impossible odds because it is the right thing to do. A true warrior knows that there are things more important than victory. There are things more important than survival. There is honor. There is duty. There is sacrifice." The matriarch moved closer to the screen. "I have watched the humans for a long time. I have observed them. I have studied them. And I have always understood what you did not. That humans possess a strength we can no longer find in ourselves. We have lived so long that we have forgotten what it means to truly live. We have conquered so much that we have forgotten why conquest matters. But the humans remember. They remember why we fight. They remember who we fight for." The matriarch stood up, an action that took great effort. When she spoke again, her voice was formal and filled with ceremonial weight. I, Supreme Matriarch of the Collective, declare that humanity is recognized as equals in the Galactic Council, not because of the weapons they carry, not because of the military might they possess, but because of the spirit they have shown, because they came to save enemies, because they sacrificed everything without asking for anything in return. She turned her gaze to. My daughter, you mocked the human warrior. You believed her weak. Now you have seen that you were wrong. The strength of a human cannot be measured by our standards. It cannot be calculated by our science. It can only be understood by the heart. And because you failed to see it, now you must acknowledge it. The matriarch raised her hand in a gesture that held centuries of authority. I command you, kneel before the human ambassador. Acknowledge her strength. Acknowledge the strength of her people. Do this not as a gesture of defeat, but as a gesture of respect. The screen went dark, and Laura stood in silence for a moment, then moved. She dropped to one knee. Then, with deliberate slowness, she lowered herself to the ground until both knees were bending, her head bowed. Laura stood above her, watching. She saw tears streaming down his alien face. She saw a warrior breaking under the weight of understanding. Laura extended her hand. Rise, she said simply. Took the offered hand. Laura pulled her up, and as stood, she looked directly at the human ambassador. In her eyes was something that had not been there before. In her eyes was respect. In her eyes was the beginning of something new. I am sorry, said. I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand what you and your people have shown me. You do not need to apologize, Laura said. You need to remember. Remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to be wrong about something so important. Remember what it felt like to realize that strength comes in many forms. And then help me teach the rest of your civilization what I have tried to teach you. Nodded, she understood now. The battle was over, but the real work was beginning. The real work would be understanding. The real work would be building a future where humans and two species that had nearly destroyed each other could stand together as equals. Around the colony, the wounded were being treated. The destroyed was being repaired. And in the command center, a human and a stood together, two warriors who had discovered that the greatest strength does not come from weapons. It comes from the willingness to sacrifice. It comes from the choice to protect others. It comes from love and duty and the understanding that some things are worth dying for. The stars continued their endless rotation above them. The galaxy moved forward into whatever future would come next. And for the first time, humans and would face that future together as one unified force against the darkness. Laura placed her hand on his shoulder, and the warrior did not pull away. They had a great deal of work ahead of them, but they would do it together, and that, finally, was strength.